The accident that changed everything. Ethan Carter groaned as he pulled himself out of the wreckage of his escape pod. His body ached, his head throbbed, and the smell of burnt metal filled his lungs. The crash had been rough, but at least he was still alive. He looked around, taking in his surroundings. Thick, alien trees stretched high into the sky, their purple leaves glowing softly under the light of two suns. Strange bird-like creatures with 4 wings circled overhead, watching him curiously. The air was warm, almost too humid, and the ground beneath his boots felt soft and damp. "This is bad," Ethan muttered to himself, checking his communicator. No signal. His ship had exploded in orbit, leaving him stranded on this unknown planet. He had no weapons, no supplies, and no way to call for help. He needed to find shelter before nightfall. With cautious steps, he moved through the dense jungle, pushing aside thick vines and stepping over roots that twisted like sleeping snakes. Every now and then, he heard rustling in the bushes. Something was watching him. He gripped a sharp metal shard from the wreckage, his only makeshift weapon. Then he saw her. A tall feline-like humanoid stood on a rock ahead of him. Her fur was silver with dark stripes running down her arms and legs. Her ears twitched as she stared at him with glowing yellow eyes. A long, powerful tail swayed behind her, moving with a predator's grace. Ethan froze. He had read about alien warriors like this before, deadly, territorial, and extremely dangerous. The alien woman, Lyra, narrowed her eyes. Her people had never seen a human before, but she had heard stories. Weak, fragile creatures who relied on their machines. Yet this one had survived a crash. Strange. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice sharp and commanding. Ethan didn't understand her language, but the tone was clear. "What are you doing here?" He raised his hand slowly, trying to show he wasn't a threat. "I don't understand you," he said. Lyra sighed in frustration and leaped down from the rock with inhuman speed. She landed right in front of him, making Ethan stumble back. She was taller than him, her muscles lean but strong. Ethan gulped. "This is bad." Before he could react, Lyra circled him, sniffing the air cautiously. Her people relied on scent as much as sight, and Ethan smelled different. Not a threat, but not entirely weak either. Just odd. Then it happened. Lyra turned to leave, dismissing him as harmless. But as she did, her tail brushed against Ethan's arm. It was a small, accidental touch, nothing important to her. But to her people, it meant everything. Ethan felt nothing at first, just a slight tickle. But Lyra's eyes widened in shock. She stared at him, her ears flattening. The scent. It had transferred. Ethan Carter, an ordinary human, had just been claimed. Lyra took a step back, her mind racing. In her culture, a tail mark was a sacred act. It wasn't just a touch. It was a sign of ownership, a bond that could not be easily broken. Her people would see this human as hers. Ethan had no idea what he had just done. Before Lyra could explain, a deep, guttural growl echoed through the jungle. More of her kind appeared, tall, armored warriors with sharp weapons and glowing eyes. They surrounded Ethan in seconds, their claws flexing as they prepared to attack. "Wait," Lyra shouted in her language. The warriors hesitated, their eyes flicking between her and Ethan. Then they smelled it, the mark. A heavy silence fell over the group. Then, to Ethan's complete confusion, the warriors suddenly bowed before him. Ethan blinked. What? Lyra clenched her jaw. This was bad. Very bad. One of the warriors, a massive brute with scars across his chest, spoke in a deep voice. "The human has been claimed," he said, his tone respectful. Ethan had no clue what was happening, but Lyra did. By their law, this human now belonged to her. He was under her protection. He was, whether she liked it or not, her chosen mate. Her tail twitched in frustration. How had this happened? Ethan, still utterly confused, raised a hand. Can someone tell me what's going on?" Before anyone could answer, the warriors pulled him forward. "Come," one of them said. "The elders must decide his fate." Ethan had no choice but to follow. As they led him toward their stronghold, he glanced at Lyra. "Hey, you're the only one who doesn't look like they want to kill me. A little help." Lyra groaned, rubbing her forehead. "This is going to be a problem," she muttered. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The warriors' claim. Ethan Carter had survived a spaceship crash, a jungle full of strange creatures, and a run-in with an alien warrior. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this. He was standing in the middle of a massive alien stronghold, surrounded by towering feline-like warriors, all staring at him like he was something out of a prophecy. And it was all because of one stupid accident. Lyra, the silver-furred warrior who had dragged him here, stood stiffly at his side, arms crossed, tail flicking in frustration. Ethan had seen that expression before, the look of someone regretting every life decision that led them to this moment. The warriors had marched him into a great stone hall, lit by massive torches that flickered with an eerie blue fire. Alien symbols were carved into the walls, depicting battles, warriors, and, if he wasn't mistaken, some sort of ancient ritual. At the far end of the hall sat a group of elder warriors, their fur streaked with white, their eyes sharp with wisdom. They studied Ethan as if deciding whether to roast him alive or bow before him. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Why were they all looking at him like that? One of the elders finally spoke. "So, this is the human." His voice was deep, rough, but oddly curious. "He was marked by accident," Lyra said quickly, stepping forward. "It was not intentional. I demand that the claim be removed." A low murmur spread through the hall. The warriors did not look pleased. "Impossible," another elder said, his sharp claws tapping against the stone floor. "Once a claim is made, it cannot be undone so easily. You know the law." Lyra. Ethan, still 100% lost, raised a hand awkwardly. Yeah, hi. Can someone please explain what's going on? In words I can understand." Lyra exhaled sharply. "The problem, human, is that when I touched you with my tail, it transferred my scent onto you. My people see that as a bond, a permanent one. It means you're under my protection. It means—" She hesitated, her ears flattening slightly. The elder warrior finished for her. "It means you are her chosen mate." Silence. Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You belong to her now," another warrior said, looking at him like he was a particularly unfortunate piece of property. Ethan laughed nervously. "Okay, see, that's not how things work where I'm from. I'm not anyone's mate. This is all a big misunderstanding. So let's just—" "You do not understand," the elder cut in. "To reject a claim is dishonor. If Lyra does not accept you, she will be exiled from the tribe." Ethan's mouth snapped shut. He looked at Lyra. "Wait, what?" She didn't look at him. She was clenching her fists, her tail completely still now. She already knew. "This is ridiculous," Lyra finally growled. "I am one of our best warriors. I have blood for this tribe. I will not be exiled over a mistake." "Then there is only one solution," another elder said, voice cold. "If you will not accept the claim, someone must challenge it." A deep, rumbling laugh filled the room. Ethan turned and saw Vator. Even among the alien warriors, he stood out, a hulking brute covered in scars, his golden eyes gleaming with amusement. Unlike Lyra, who carried herself like a disciplined fighter, Vator looked like he enjoyed breaking things, including people. "I will challenge," Vator said with a smirk. "Let me take the claim. If I defeat the human in a duel, I will claim Lyra instead." Ethan's brain short-circuited. "Wait, hold on. Duel? No one said anything about a duel." Vator sneered. "You are not worthy of her, human. If she is to have a mate, Let it be one who can fight. Ethan looked at Lyra, desperate for her to step in. You're not actually considering this, are you? She exhaled through her nose. I don't have a choice. If I reject you and no one else claims me, I lose everything. If Vator wins, at least I stay in the tribe. Ethan threw up his hands. Yeah, except I'd die in the process. Then fight, Vator growled, stepping closer. If you are strong enough to claim a warrior, prove it. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him aside. Listen to me, she said in a low voice. Vator is dangerous, but he's also predictable. He fights with brute strength. You can't win against that, but you might be able to outsmart him. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. I can't fight an alien warrior. I don't even know how to hold a sword. You don't have to fight like us, she said. Fight like a human. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't like this. Not one bit. But he really didn't like the idea of being torn apart in front of a crowd of alien warriors. Fine, he muttered. Tell me how to beat this guy. Lyra hesitated, then gave a small nod. If we do this right, she whispered, you might just survive. The duel of the unprepared. Ethan Carter stood in the middle of a massive circular arena, heart pounding like a war drum. This was madness. The stone walls surrounding him were lined with alien warriors, their glowing yellow eyes fixed on him. They whispered in their strange language, some sneering, others looking mildly amused. It was clear none of them expected him to last more than a few seconds. Across from him, Vator, the towering feline brute, stretched his muscular arms, cracking his knuckles with a sound like breaking bones. He rolled his shoulders, tail flicking lazily behind him. To him, this wasn't even a fight. It was entertainment. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no weapons, no armor, no training. All he had was a brain and a very strong will to keep living. Lyra stood at the edge of the arena, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. But when Ethan locked eyes with her, she gave a single, sharp nod. You can do this. He wasn't sure if she actually believed that, or if she just didn't want to be claimed by Vator. But he had no choice. Survival depended on strategy. A deep voice echoed through the arena. One of the elders stood, raising a staff. The challenge has been accepted. The fight begins now. A loud horn boomed through the air. Vator charge. Ethan barely had time to react before a massive fist swung at his head. He ducked, barely, feeling the wind of the blow as it passed. If that had connected, his skull would have cracked like an egg. Vator was fast, too fast. Ethan scrambled backward, dodging another punch. The brute wasn't just attacking. He was playing with him, enjoying how the weaker opponent scrambled like prey. Ethan's mind raced. Think, think, think. He couldn't match Vator in strength. That much was clear. The guy was built like a tank, every muscle in his body designed to break things. But strength had weaknesses. It made you slower, predictable. Vator swung again, but this time, Ethan didn't just dodge. He dropped to the ground, rolling between the brute's legs. The alien stumbled slightly, surprised by the move. A murmur rippled through the watching warriors. Ethan wasn't just running anymore. He was thinking. Vator turned with a snarl, fangs bared. You run like prey, human. Ethan smirked, trying to hide how badly his hands were shaking. And you hit like my grandmother. Vator roared and lunged again. But Ethan was ready. He sidestepped at the last second, making the alien warrior's momentum work against him. Vator's own weight carried him forward, right into the stone wall of the arena. Crack! The impact shook the ground. Dust exploded into the air. The crowd gasped. Ethan's eyes widened. That actually worked. Vator staggered, shaking his head, looking more angry than hurt. But Ethan saw it, the first sign of weakness. Lyra smirked from the sideline. Good. Use that brain of yours, human. Vator turned, growling deep in his chest. Enough games. He moved faster than before. Ethan tried to dodge, but too late. A massive arm caught him by the throat. The world blurred as Ethan was lifted off the ground like a ragdoll. The crowd roared. Ethan clawed at the alien's hand, gasping for breath. This was bad. Liara took a step forward, but another warrior held her back. She couldn't interfere. Vator sneered. Pathetic. You should not have come here. Ethan's vision darkened at the edges. His lungs screamed. Then, he remembered something. His scent. The warriors had all reacted to it, treated him differently because of Liara's mark. It meant something. If he couldn't outfight Vator, maybe he could outthink him. With the last of his strength, Ethan reached out, grabbing Vator's tail. The moment he did, everything changed. The watching warriors gasped. Some even took a step back. Vator froze. His pupils dilated. His whole body stiffened. Ethan didn't know what he'd just done, but it worked. He used the moment to drive his knee into Vator's ribs. The alien gasped, not from pain, but from shock. He let go, and Ethan dropped to the ground, coughing. Vator staggered backward, eyes wide. He touched his tail like Ethan had just violated some sacred rule. Ethan stood up slowly, rubbing his sore throat. He looked at Liara. What just happened? Liara blinked, looking at Vator, then at Ethan. Then she laughed. Vator's expression twisted in humiliation and rage. You? He snarled, stepping forward. But one of the elders stood. Enough. The elder's gaze landed on Vator, then Ethan. The fight is over. Vator looked stunned. What? The elder's voice was calm but firm. The human has bested you. By law, the claim stands. Ethan blinked. Did I just win? Vator growled in frustration but didn't argue. He knew the rules. Ethan had done something that, to them, was worse than just fighting. He had used intelligence. Liara crossed her arms, still smirking. I told you to fight like a human. Ethan let out a shaky breath. Yeah, well, next time, maybe warn me if touching someone's tail is like kicking them in the pride. The watching warriors started muttering among themselves. Some looked amused, others looked impressed. But Ethan also saw hatred. Not everyone liked what had just happened. Vator didn't just lose, he was humiliated. And that meant Ethan had just made a very dangerous enemy. A secret plot against the human. The duel was over, but the real battle was just beginning. Ethan Carter stood in the center of the arena, bruised, battered, and barely able to breathe. He had just done the impossible. He had defeated Vator, one of the strongest warriors in the tribe. But he hadn't done it with strength or speed. He had done it with his brain. The gathered warriors whispered among themselves, their feline-like tails flicking with a mix of amusement, confusion, and something darker, resentment. Ethan wasn't stupid. He saw the way some of them looked at him. They didn't respect him. They hated him. But the rules were the rules. The claim stands, the elder announced, his deep voice echoing across the stone walls. By our laws, the human remains under Liara's protection. Vator clenched his jaw, his muscles twitching with barely contained rage. He had never lost before, not like this. The humiliation burned deeper than any wound. He shot Ethan a look that made his skin crawl. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The storm before the strike. Later that night, Ethan sat near a massive bonfire in the heart of the stronghold, his body still aching from the fight. He was surrounded by warriors, some laughing, some drinking, some sharpening their weapons. They weren't celebrating him. They were watching him, testing him, waiting for him to fail. Liara sat next to him, arms crossed, her silver fur glowing under the firelight. She had barely spoken since the duel. Ethan cleared his throat. So, are you going to tell me what the hell happened back there? Liara didn't look at him. You grabbed his tail. Yeah, I noticed. He wasn't a fan. Liara finally turned, her yellow eyes gleaming. No, he wasn't. In our culture, touching someone's tail in a fight is a sign of dominance. You humiliated him in front of the entire tribe. You didn't just beat him, Ethan. Her lips curled slightly in amusement. You owned him. Ethan stared. Okay, first of all, that is not what I was trying to do. Second, what happens now? Liara's smirk faded. Now, you watch your back. Ethan tensed. Great, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Liara sighed, rubbing her temples. Look, Vator can't challenge you again outright. He lost, and the law is the law. But there are other ways to deal with enemies. Ethan frowned. You think he'll try something? Liara's expression darkened. I know he will. A shadow in the night. Ethan had just started drifting off to sleep when he heard it. A soft click. His instincts screamed at him. Mo-V. In the darkness, something lunged at him. Ethan rolled just in time as a blade slashed down where his neck had been. His attacker moved fast, too fast for a normal warrior. The firelight barely caught the gleam of a masked figure, dressed in black, blending into the shadows. An assassin. Ethan had no weapons, no armor, just his wits. The attacker slashed again. Ethan dodged, barely avoiding the razor-sharp edge. Too slow. He needed a weapon. His eyes darted around the tent. Then he saw it. A metal plate from his dinner earlier. It wasn't a sword, but it would do. As the assassin lunged again, Ethan grabbed the plate and threw it as hard as he could. Clang! The impact wasn't enough to hurt, but it was enough to stun. Ethan didn't hesitate. He tackled the assassin, sending them both crashing through the side of the tent. The commotion woke the camp. Warriors rushed forward, weapons drawn. The assassin tried to escape, but Liara was faster. She moved like lightning. In one swift motion, she grabbed the attacker and slammed them to the ground. Her blade pressed against their throat. Silence fell. The firelight revealed who it was. A young warrior, one of Vator's men. Ethan clenched his fists. Of course. The elder warriors approached, their expressions grim. An attack on one under protection is an attack on the law itself, one of them said coldly. This will not go unpunished. Liara turned to Ethan. You see now, this isn't just about the duel. Ethan nodded, heart still racing. Yeah, this is war. The plan for revenge. Across the camp, in the shadows, Vator watched. His assassin had failed, but it didn't matter. This was only the first step. He turned to the warriors gathered around him, his most loyal followers, the ones who despised Ethan. He has no place among us, Vator growled. He weakens us. He insults our traditions. His men nodded in agreement, eyes burning with hatred. We cannot challenge him directly, Vator continued, but there are other ways to break a human. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face, and I know exactly where to start. The choice of the marked one. The attempted assassination changed everything. Ethan Carter sat on a cold stone bench inside Liara's tent, replaying the attack over and over in his mind. He had nearly died in his sleep. The bruises on his arms still ached from the fight, but what hurt more was the realization that he wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was a target. Across from him, Liara paced, her ears twitching in irritation. She was furious, not just because of the attack, but because of what it meant. This is bigger than Vator's bruised ego, she muttered, tail flicking. He's not just trying to kill you, he's trying to break you. Ethan frowned. What does that mean? Liara stopped pacing and met his gaze. He wants you to leave. Ethan leaned forward. So what? He can't challenge me directly anymore. Right. Liara shook her head. No, but there are other ways to get rid of someone. If you decide this is too much and walk away, no one will stop you. In fact, they'll be happy. Ethan exhaled sharply. He wasn't stupid. He knew this wasn't over. Vator had warriors loyal to him. Some had already shown they were willing to kill to get Ethan out of the way. And yet, something inside him refused to quit. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the simple fact that he was tired of running. Whatever it was, Ethan wasn't leaving. He looked up at Liara, his jaw set. "Then I stay." Liara studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. "Good. The trial of the marked one." The next morning, the stronghold was buzzing with new whispers. The human was still here. He had survived the assassin. He wasn't running. That meant only one thing. He would have to prove himself. The elder warriors gathered in the great stone hall, their expressions unreadable. "You have chosen to remain human," one of them said. "But you cannot simply exist among us. You must contribute. You must prove your worth." Ethan crossed his arms. "And how do I do that?" An elder warrior stepped forward. "You will be given a task. A hunt." A murmur spread through the gathered warriors. Ethan frowned. "A hunt. That's it." Liara scoffed. "You should be worried. This isn't just any hunt." The elder continued. "You will go into the Vorak wastes, a place even our strongest warriors fear. There, you will track and kill a Exerkai." The room fell silent. Ethan frowned. "That doesn't sound too bad." Liara turned to him, her expression dead serious. "It's bad." Ethan swallowed. "How bad?" She sighed. "The Exerkai is a creature that hunts in complete darkness. It moves without sound. It smells fear. Even the best warriors struggle to kill one." Ethan's stomach dropped. Of course, it couldn't just be a normal hunt. It had to be a death mission. "Great," he muttered. "And I'm supposed to do this alone?" The elder shook his head. "No. You may choose one warrior to go with you." Ethan didn't hesitate. He turned to Liara. "You in?" She smirked. "I thought you'd never ask." Into the Vorak wastes. The Vorak wastes were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. A massive, endless canyon stretched before them, filled with jagged rocks and deep crevices. The sky above was dark even though it was daytime. Thick storm clouds blocked out the sun. Nothing moved. No birds. No wind. Just silence. Ethan gripped the crude spear he had been given, feeling very underprepared. "Tell me again why we're doing this." Liara crouched, examining the ground. "Because the only way to survive here is to prove you belong." Ethan sighed. "Yeah, well, I'd rather prove that with a less terrifying creature." Liara smirked. Too late now. They moved cautiously through the canyon, every step measured. Ethan could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on him. It was unnatural. Then, a sound. A soft, wet clicking noise. Liara froze. Her ears twitched. "Ethan," she whispered, "do not move." Ethan barely breathed. The clicking sound grew closer. Something was watching them. Then, a blur of movement. Ethan barely saw it in time. A massive, shadowy creature leaped from the rocks, its body blending perfectly with the darkness. Clawed hands. Rows of teeth. Empty, soulless black eyes. It was fast. Liara dove out of the way just as the Exerkai landed where she had been. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground. Ethan staggered back. "Ethan, move!" Liara shouted. The Exerkai turned toward him, its eyeless face somehow locking onto him. And then it lunged. The battle in the darkness. Ethan ran. He barely had time to think, let alone fight. The Exerkai moved like a ghost, its massive body silent despite its speed. Liara threw a knife, aiming for its throat, but the creature twisted midair, dodging like it could sense the attack. Ethan barely had time to process that before it was on him. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the claws. He jabbed with his spear, but the weapon snapped in half against the creature's thick hide. Panic surged in his chest. This thing was too fast, too strong. It wasn't a hunt. It was a slaughter. Liara tried to flank it, slashing with her blade. But the exarchai countered instantly, knocking her aside with a powerful swipe. Ethan's heart pounded. Then he remembered Liara's words. It smells fear. Ethan took a deep breath, forced his body to go still. The exarchai paused. It tilted its head, sensing something was wrong. Ethan moved slowly now. No sudden jerks. No fear. The creature hesitated, its instincts confused. That's when Ethan saw it. A weak spot. A scar on its underbelly. Lara saw it too. Ethan, when I say go, you strike. Understand? Ethan nodded. The exarchai lunged at Lara. She dodged, rolling under its massive body. Now, Ethan grabbed a broken spear tip from the ground and plunged it into the scar. The exarchai let out an unearthly scream. The ground shook. Then, silence. The creature collapsed. Dead. Ethan stumbled backward, panting. Did we just? Liara stood up, wiping blood from her blade. Yes, you killed exarchai. She smirked. Welcome to the tribe, human. The battle for acceptance. Ethan Carter had survived an assassination attempt. He had hunted and killed a exarchai, a creature even elite warriors feared. He had done the impossible again. And yet, as he stood in the center of the stronghold, surrounded by warriors, he realized something. Surviving wasn't enough. He had proven he was not weak. But being strong and being accepted were two very different things. The return to the stronghold, the walk back from the Vorik wastes, should have felt victorious. It should have felt like a warrior's march home. But Ethan could feel the eyes on him. Some warriors whispered as he passed. Others watched in silence. A few bowed their heads slightly, a sign of respect he hadn't seen before. And then there were the others. The ones who scowled. The ones who hated that he had returned alive. And at the center of them all, Vator. Ethan met his gaze across the stronghold courtyard. Vator didn't look angry. That was the problem. He looked amused, like he had been waiting for this moment. Ethan's gut tightened. Something was wrong. The council's verdict. Inside the great stone hall, the elders sat in their usual places, their expressions unreadable. Liara stood beside Ethan, her arms crossed. She was tense, but not worried. She had seen what he could do. The lead elder spoke first. The human has returned from the hunt, he said, voice heavy with tradition. Did he succeed? Liara answered for him. He killed the exarchai himself. A low murmur spread through the warriors gathered. The elder studied Ethan. You have done something few have accomplished, a great feat. Ethan waited for the but, and there it was. But a warrior is more than a hunter. The elder leaned forward, sharp eyes locking onto Ethan. A warrior fights for his people. A warrior defends. A warrior leads. Ethan didn't like where this was going. The elder turned to the gathered warriors. There is a battle coming, a war with the Drakshul. And now we must decide. His gaze returned to Ethan. If this human is truly one of us, the coming war. The Drakshul were another tribe, ruthless, brutal, and relentless. They had been enemies of Liara's people for centuries. And now they were marching toward them. Scouts report they will reach us in 3 days, an elder warrior announced. They come with numbers, with weapons. Vator stepped forward. Then we meet them in battle. The warriors cheered, but the elder held up a hand. We will not send our warriors blindly into a slaughter. We must plan. Vator smirked. And who will lead this plan? The elder turned back to Ethan. The human. Silence. Ethan's heart stopped. Wait. What? Vator's smirk grew wider. Ethan took a step forward. Hold on. You want me to lead your warriors? In a war? I don't even know your full battle tactics. The elder remained calm. We have warriors. We have weapons. But if we fight the way we always have, we will lose. You are different. You fight differently. And that may give us the advantage we need." Ethan clenched his jaw. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a general. But he was human. And humans. They adapted. The strategy of a human mind. Ethan spent the next 2 days studying everything. He worked with Lyra, analyzing old battle formations, weaknesses, past victories, and failures. The warriors fought with brute strength, always clashing head-on. But the Drak-Shol, they were smarter. They used ambushes, deception, tactics. Ethan knew he couldn't change the way these warriors fought overnight, but he could use what they already had. He stood before the gathered warriors on the final night before battle. "I'm not here to teach you how to fight," he said. "You already know that. But if we fight this battle their way, we lose." He let that sink in. "They expect us to charge," he continued. "They expect us to meet them in open combat. So we won't." Warriors murmured. Lyra smirked. Ethan stepped forward. "We will use the terrain. We will set traps. We will lure them in, then strike when they least expect it." One warrior frowned. "That is not how we fight." Ethan met his gaze. "That's why they always win." Silence. Then, Vator laughed. "You truly believe this will work, human?" he sneered. Ethan stared him down. "We'll find out tomorrow. The battle begins." Dawn. The Drak-Shol came, just as predicted. Hundreds of them. Ethan stood atop the ridge, heart pounding. This was it. Do or die. Lyra stood beside him, ready. He exhaled, not even a little. She grinned. Good. The Drak-Shol charged. And then, Ethan's plan unfolded. Hidden traps sprang to life, catching their front lines. Rocks tumbled down from cliffs, smashing into warriors. Then, the counterattack. Lyra and her warriors struck fast and hard, moving like shadows through the chaos. They hit from unexpected angles, using speed over brute force. The Drak-Shol leader, expecting an easy slaughter, was thrown into confusion. And then, as planned, Ethan led the final blow. He ran straight into the enemy camp, drawing their leader's attention. When the Drak-Shol general lunged at him, Ethan dodged. And Lyra finished the job. The enemy fell. Their army broke. The battle was over. And Ethan Carter, he wasn't just some human anymore. He was one of them. The unintended leader. The battlefield was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence after a storm. The bodies of the Drak-Shol warriors lay scattered across the blood-stained ground. Their once mighty war cries now nothing more than echoes lost to the wind. The scent of iron and scorched earth filled the air. Ethan Carter stood in the middle of it all, chest rising and falling with exhaustion. His hands were slick with sweat and dirt, his muscles aching from battle. He had led them, and they had won. But he wasn't celebrating, because even as the warriors of the stronghold roared in victory, chanting his name for the first time, he knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Vator was still here. And the real battle had only just begun. The aftermath of war. Ethan wiped his forehead and turned to Lyra, who stood beside him, her silver fur streaked with dirt and blood. "You did it," she said, voice filled with something unexpected, pride. Ethan exhaled. "Yeah. And yet, I don't feel like we're done." Lyra followed his gaze toward the gathering warriors. Some were cheering. Others were whispering. And then there were the ones who still stood with Vator. The massive warrior had fought in the battle, but he had not fought for Ethan's plan. He had led his own warriors, his own way. And now, as the dust settled, he stepped forward. Ethan tensed. He knew that look. It was the look of a man who wasn't finished. Vator's challenge. Vator walked through the field of warriors, his golden eyes locked on Ethan. He wasn't smiling this time. No amusement. Just cold, simmering fury. "You think this means something," he said, voice low but powerful. "You think one battle makes you one of us." Ethan wiped the blood from his lip. "I don't know. But I know we'd all be dead if we fought the way you wanted to." A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. Vator's fists clenched. "You are not our leader." Ethan exhaled. "I don't want to be." Vator's nostrils flared. "Then why do they chant your name?" Ethan turned. He hadn't even noticed it before. The warriors were chanting Ethan's name, not as an outsider, but as one of them. Liara leaned in slightly, voice low. "This is bigger than you now, Ethan." Ethan swallowed. "Great. Love that for me." Vator stepped forward. "I will not stand by while a human rises above our warriors." The elder warriors watched in silence. Then one of them spoke. "There is only one way to settle this," the elder said. "The right of dominion." The air shifted. The warriors murmured again, this time in excitement. Ethan frowned. "I have a feeling I'm not gonna like what that is." Liara sighed. "It's a fight." Ethan rubbed his face. "Of course it is. But not just any fight," she continued. "It's a challenge for leadership." Ethan froze. "I thought I wasn't leading anything." Liara smirked. "That's not up to you anymore." Vator grinned. "Tomorrow," he said, voice filled with satisfaction, "you and I fight. One of us will walk away as the stronger, the rightful leader." He stepped closer, towering over Ethan. "And the other will not walk away at all." The final battle. The next day, the entire stronghold gathered in the great arena. Ethan stood in the center, rolling his shoulders, feeling the weight of every eye on him. He was about to fight the strongest warrior in the tribe. And if he lost, he wouldn't get another chance. Liara stepped beside him, pressing a weapon into his hand. It wasn't a sword. It wasn't a spear. It was a dagger. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Really? That's all I get?" Liara met his gaze. "You're not stronger than him. You're not faster. If you fight his fight, you'll lose." Ethan tightened his grip on the blade. "I know." Then the horn blew, and Vator charged. The warrior versus the human. Vator was faster than before. No playing, no arrogance. Just pure, brutal force. Ethan barely dodged the first blow. A punch that would have shattered his skull grazed past him, and the shockwave alone sent him stumbling. Vator came again, relentless, powerful. Ethan tried to counter, but every move was blocked, every strike avoided. This wasn't like the first duel. Vator had learned. Ethan hit the ground hard. Blood dripped from his forehead. His vision swam. "Get up." Vator loomed over him, breathing heavily. "This was never your place," he growled. Ethan clenched his fists. He was right. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be dead. But he wasn't. Because humans, they don't stop. Ethan looked up and smiled. Vator hesitated, and in that moment, Ethan moved. He didn't aim for Vator's strength. He aimed for his balance. Ethan swept his legs out from under him, catching him off guard. Vator stumbled. Ethan rolled, using every last ounce of strength, and drove the dagger into his opponent's shoulder. Not to kill, but to win. Vator roared in pain. Then, silence. Ethan stood over him, dagger still embedded in flesh. The arena watched, waiting. And then, Vator lowered his head, the ultimate sign of submission. The battle was over. Ethan Carter had won. Again.